Oh, hello everyone. Welcome to Gnomon Art Jam. My name's Josh Herman. Welcome to the stream. We're going to be sculpting some stuff in ZBrush today for the next couple hours, so welcome and thanks for hanging out. I realize this is not a that was not a royalty-free song that was playing, so I have to switch that real quick. Welcome to the stream, like I was just saying. Excited to have everybody here. We're going to be working on some stuff in ZBrush, probably a different type of a project. We've done a bunch of little short timed projects in the past, and I kind of just want to do something that's a little bit longer and kind of a, I don't know, like a creature or a character or something for a couple hours today. So we're going to work on that. If you have any questions, by the way, feel free to ask. I am here. I believe one of our representatives is here in the chat as well, or if not, we can help point you to things that you might be interested in, whether that's information on courses, curriculum, programs, anything about that specifically. So feel free to ask questions if you got them. I'm going to show my screen here. So let's share that really quickly. You see ZBrush here. I'm going to start sculpting. We'll get moving. Let's see. I'm trying to think of what we should make today. Any suggestions from the chat? Feel free to let me know about something that would be a good topic to make today, or that you'd like to see. Atik, welcome. Welcome to the stream, sir. Hope you're doing well. All right. We have a beautiful sphere here right now. What shall we turn this sphere into? I'm going to dynamesh it first. How's it going? It's going really well. Thank you for asking. Got some fun news. I will actually be starting the Unreal Fellowship, not this week, but a week from, or next week, I'll start my orientation, and the following week I'll get into that. So I'm excited to jump into Unreal, learn that quite a bit, and I'll end up, like if you know anything about that, end up making a sort of a short film for that, which will be kind of fun. All right, what can we make today? Let's put me here. Does that work? Oh, that does something different than I thought it would. All right. Let's change this, hide this. Cool. All right, let's make a creature. Let's just kind of start exploring some shapes. Is it hard for a non-artist to go into sculpting? That's a good question. I mean, I think if you're an artist who wants to get into, if you're somebody who wants to get into sculpting, you'll eventually be an artist. So I don't know if it's necessarily hard. It sounds like there's a transition there. Or, I know a lot of people that probably wouldn't consider themselves artists that enjoy sculpting. So I don't think it's necessarily hard. You might have more to learn in different ways, but as long as you're having fun with it. Let's go to our smooth brush. Let's get smooth stronger. This is going to be way better for Dynamesh to be able to create planes. It works really, really well for this kind of stuff. What am I making today? I'm not sure yet. I'm just kind of sculpting a rough sketch of something. So if anybody has suggestions or ideas or thoughts for inspiration, I'm happy to take them. I don't think I'm going to do fan art today or anything like that like I've done in the past couple of streams before. I thought about working on that spaceship for a little bit. I might pull that up and work on that. Some of the previous things we've worked on. See, I'm going to load up some of those. So this was one of the ones that I worked on last week that I actually thought was kind of cool. Somebody says, creature please. So this was a spaceship block out that we worked on. We also worked on another one. It's like an asymmetrical one. And then we worked on this one. Oh, I thought that was the same one. This is the one I like the most, though. I'll probably keep using this for something. Creature, please. All right, let's go back to our sphere that we're starting with. This is just going to be a Dynamesh object, and we're just going to start sculpting. I got to figure out where this creature would be from. Are they humanoid? Are they sentient? Volcano. This is your generic alien head shape. All right. Roughing. I'd like to use this damn standard brush up here to kind of just explore shapes. I almost use it as like drawing. So if I can come over an object and just kind of like start drawing like this, I can use that as a really easy way to kind of define, you know, where some shapes might go. You kind of even just like look for happy accidents. Can kind of see a bit of a head shape in here that I'm liking. Something that just feels like pretty natural to what we got. I really like working, in case you've never watched the stream before, I kind of work at this size, as like this distance from the screen as much as I can. And I also like to kind of, meaning that it's a little smaller rather than getting like really close and trying to zoom up on something. I like to do that quite a bit. And then I also work lower on my resolution for as long as possible as well. Throw a little extra wrinkle stuff in here. put these like sort of nostrils up here. I don't know if it necessarily needs to be that, but. Hope everybody's doing well out there. All right. I kind of like this actually. Let's continue with this one today for a little while. Should have ears. Liking the shirt. Thank you very much. Thank you, thank you. I've been slowly accumulating more and more D&D shirts over the past couple years, so it's, you know, kind of fun to play with that. Just giving like a little bit of undulation to the surfaces here, just to kind of give it a slightly more natural quality. There's not really a reason to, especially as you're searching for shapes, but I kind of like to do this as like a preparing my scene sort of a thing, you know, just kind of getting everything ready. I'm going to append another sphere. Actually, just duplicate the thing that I have here. Because it's so small, I can just Dynamesh it. And then with the brush that I'm using, I can smooth it out really, really quickly. So you can see I could just start to kind of turn it into another ball of clay. This is why, you know, somebody was saying, or asking about sculpting and stuff like that. ZBrush, especially digital sculpting in ZBrush, is so, it feels to me at least, very like analog sculpting. So I think if you can sculpt in clay, you can sculpt digitally, and if you can sculpt digitally, you have a better understanding of sculpting in clay. Not saying you can sculpt in clay right away, because it's a very different feel and experience, but definitely get there. Kind of feeling like this would have like sort of a large, broad rib cage. That's what I'm blocking out right here. Maybe like a hunchback sort of situation. For some reason I'm being reminded of the character or creature from 300, the hunchback. It's a little curve to the front. Is anybody out there working on some projects? Personal projects, school projects? Trying the inflate tool here to create this large shoulder shape. Playing with the intersection of forms here, diving them into each other, and then I'm going to dynamesh it together, and that'll kind of create a sort of natural intersection shape right away. Ahoy! Never an empty day, huh? That's good. It's good to be busy. Turn perspective on. For some reason it was not on. Trying a different technique where I basically go to the profile or go to different angles and just kind of make sure that everything, the apexes and the curves are generally happening in the way that I want, and then I'll go to other angles and kind of do the same thing. I'm also going to just mask these, hit Control W, which makes that into a poly group. So I can now quickly and easily hide this. Kind of liking some of the shapes though. Sad monk alien. Sure, yeah. Hi, hello. Hello, welcome to the stream. Welcome to Gnomon Art Jam. Just sculpting a creature today. We might sculpt a bunch of creatures depending on how quickly this one goes. We might just focus on this creature. Kind of also reminds me of E.T. Now, when E.T.'s head is like in its body, you know, a much buffer version of E.T. My stream connection issues. Hope I'm back. It appears that my internet is fine, so I'm going to keep working. Do I ever procrastinate at art? I definitely procrastinate at art all the time. All the time, I procrastinate at art. You know, whether it's I got bored or I get tired or I want to focus on something else or there's a new show that I really want to watch or family's in town or, you know, I'm just not feeling it or I think it's really easy to procrastinate art. But I also feel it when I'm not doing it. Like I think when I'm not, you know, actively doing art, I definitely feel myself missing it and not feeling as fulfilled, I think, generally. So I definitely procrastinate. Well, Epic owns Sketchfab now. That is true. Yes, they do. Run D&D just because, or I like D&D. I'm a big D&D fan. If you haven't watched the stream before, I'm going to come over here. Let me see if I have it. Yeah. I ended up doing a couple streams ago, 3 or 4 streams ago, I did some dice. I ended up 3D designing some dice in 3D and ZBrush actually on stream and ended up printing them, 3D printing them on the printer behind me right here. So you can see this is one of the ones that I ended up making. So D20, this kind of one right here. I ended up also doing, we're going to get the whole collection here. Get them laid out in my hand so it's not super awkward and try not to jiggle too much, but a collection of a D4 all the way to a D6 and D12 as I drop them all over my desk. And good thing they're clear because they're really easy to find. So, but yeah, I do love D&D. I love roleplay games. I love all that stuff. So, yeah, I did that at several streams ago. You can actually check that out on our YouTube page. You can see them. I ended up also making some crit-only dice using a smaller one, but you can see that this is basically a dice that only can roll crits, so either crits or not at all. This is through Formlabs. What material? This is a resin, so this is a clear resin or their clear resin, and then the other one is a model resin, which is kind of the tan colored one. So yeah, I love roleplay games. I'm actually hoping to play tonight. I'm not loving this body. I started on the head. I liked the head. I think we should just do the head for now. I didn't get as far as I thought I did, so I'm going to add a subdivision level to it. We're going to append a sphere. Z plugin. Let's do, where is it? Subtool master, mirror. Oh, it's not placed yet. Hang on. Wait for it. There it is. Now we'll do subtool master mirror, merge into the same subtool. There we go. Ever printed out monsters you've made? I've done some monsters. I've done some other things. I'll show you another one that I did a couple weeks ago before that. I sculpted this a while ago, sort of on stream, but I don't remember how long ago it was, but this is basically like a Jaeger. Try to not jiggle it. Printed out stuff like this, printed out a bunch of different types of things, but I also ended up doing a much smaller version of that one, so this is a D&D sized mini. His sword broke. But kind of the same thing, just different size. It's really fun though. I quite enjoy 3D printing. It's just the print time can take a little long, and I've been having some issues getting my prints off of the bed. They're really sticking to the bed, so I gotta do some more experiments with that, but I do really like it. Oh, it'll get me off screen. There we go. Back to where we were. Not sure if this is like a nose. Like, should it be like, what am I trying to say? Should it be like the opposite, where there's like a big bulge around the nose? Should this come out and like be a nose? Should there be a nose at all? Can you ask a question? Of course you can ask a question. Paula from YouTube asks, do artists still do handmade retopology for games? Yes, they do in many places, especially for things like hard surface armors and all that kind of stuff. A lot of hand topology goes into play there. I think people get confused when they see things like Unreal 5 and Nanite, and they expect, and ZBrush, and they expect that just because you can sculpt at a high level, or whatever, it doesn't mean that the techniques of needing to optimize and all the other ways to do things are gone, or that they're not needed. Typically, this kind of stuff is more like ZBrush, and I don't know about Nanite yet, but in Unreal 5, but it's an additional tool that helps the creative process, but it doesn't usually replace entire parts of the creative process. So, just something to note. Yeah, feel free to ask questions if you've got them by the way, as I'm working. I'm happy to explain and kind of, stream of consciously talk about what I'm doing and my process, and I will do that, but it is always easier if people have questions to specifically answer. If you want me to show anything as far as a process or anything like that, feel free. I'll do my best to explain, show tips, tricks, tools, and all that. Today will mostly be sculpting though, so feel free to ask questions about that, especially if you got those. Oh, hello, welcome everybody. I see a bunch of people joining the stream. Hello, hope you're all doing well. In case you never joined the stream, welcome to Gnomon Art Jam. My name's Josh Herman. We'll be sculpting a bunch of stuff in ZBrush for the next 2.5 hours. So come and hang out or pop back in and see how things are going. We might work on one project. We might work on a bunch of different projects. We might take suggestions from the chat. So we'll kind of flex around and do whatever works here. Welcome and nice to have you here. This is sort of like a large brain kind of creature. I don't know specifically what this thing is. Do I use any reference for your sculpting? Do I do it mostly from scratch? That's a really great question. The answer is it depends. If I have a specific goal in mind, you know, of what I want to achieve, or if it's for a project for production, often I'll have a lot of reference, or reference will be given to me for the project. If I'm working on something like this is no reference. This is just kind of making a shape, running with it, and seeing what happens. Sometimes it works out really great, and sometimes it works out really, really poorly. So that's the advantage of using reference and advantage of not using reference. Carl Creates from Twitch asks, what workflow do I prefer? Dynamesh as long as you can, then ZBrush projection, or Dynamesh only? I prefer the first, which would be Dynamesh as long as I can, then ZBrush and projection. The reason I like that is I just really love having lower subdivision levels. It frees you up to have a whole host of other things. It's way easier to pose characters too, especially if it's in you know, more than one subtool. It's hugely beneficial for that. So that's the one I prefer. Pacquiao from YouTube says, you're 25, you've been learning 3D since 2013. You have a 2-year-old son and daily work, which is not related to 3D. You know, basically, it sounds like you got a lot of other stuff going on in your life right now. It kind of sounds like it's difficult to get into it. The only advice I can really give, and I have to do this for myself for anything I want to learn outside of what my main skill set is, you just got to commit the time to it and know that in doing that, it's going to be really hard, right? You're going to be giving up or sacrificing things while you learn something new. But hopefully at the end of the day, it's all going to be worth it because you'll have learned something new and something you want to do or progress in. And, you know, I for example, have never gotten into music. You can see beside me is a guitar. I picked up a guitar during pandemic, and I spend a lot of my nights and weekends times. I have a 14-year-old son myself, so not too much older or younger than yours, and that's what I spend a lot of my time doing is, you know, learning something new or trying new things, and it can be really hard. That balance can be difficult, especially while you're, you know, maintaining your job and trying to keep things steady. But I think it's important to keep long-term goals in your perspective of knowing that in, you know, several years you'll have pushed past it. And sometimes it's nice to have external motivators for goals. I like challenges, competitions, stuff like that. I find that to be extremely helpful. So hopefully that can help. You know, give yourself a goal is probably what I would recommend to you the most. If you're just kind of whittling away at tutorials, that's nice, but give yourself a goal and give yourself a timeline and hit it. Make it a challenge and hit it. Other things in your life will be sacrificed for a little bit. Often, in your situation, it's probably going to be sleep. Maybe time with a partner for a little bit, but I think, you know, open communication is good, saying, I'm going to be busy for I want to do this. I really want to do this. And for the next 3 weeks, I'm really going to focus on this. Maybe that's a way for success. think this has turned into a French bulldog meets a human. I think that's probably where this has gone, especially if we did like this. Trying to understand all. Wreck-It Rio says, I'm trying to understand all the 3D programs. ZBrush is just for sculpting statues, or are you able to manipulate appendages and such to create animation? ZBrush is a digital sculpting package. You're correct on that. And a lot of people say sculpture, and I think sculpture can be confused for statues. But you can make all different kinds of things, whether it's environments, whether it's props, weapons, spaceships. You know, you can really make anything you want in ZBrush. And it being a high-res sculpting tool is useful for a lot of things. I just showed a couple 3D prints earlier, so you can do 3D printing and make actual statues. But I think, you know, if you look at films or cinematics or some of more, you know, higher-end entertainment things, whenever you see a character with loads of amounts of detail or high-resolution stuff in there, that is often going to be sculpted in ZBrush as well. So high-resolution sculpts are useful in multiple parts of entertainment. It's not just statues, it's not just stills. Can be made for animated characters as well. But there's not a great animation engine or capabilities within ZBrush. That's definitely something, you know, that's not something that ZBrush excels at. It's a digital sculpting package for sure, first and foremost. Have I ever made animations? I have made animations, yes. I'm a graduate of Gnomon. I graduated from the full-time program 10 or 12 years ago. And through that program, I did my own animations, you know, taking animation classes, character animation classes, and other types of animation simulation classes. And it wasn't my favorite thing. It's not that I don't respect it or that I don't like it. I think it's amazing. It's usually some of the coolest stuff that's out there as far as visuals are concerned. But it's not where I excel. So I focus on asset creation, specifically characters. Daniel Kyle from YouTube, you said random question. I haven't seen it come through. Let me know what you got. Pacquiao, question. Do I need to create my own references, or is it fine to find references that are not my own and just recreate them in 3D? That is fine. It's definitely fine. Just, you know, a note, when you're saying references, make sure you're talking, are you saying concept art or reference? Or, you know, something you're going to make exactly? Or are you going to find something that you're going to make your own interpretation of? That's the key thing I would ask you. If you're going to do it off of somebody's existing design, just make sure you credit them. You're saying concept art, so that's fine. That's actually something we recommend at Gnomon quite a bit is for if you want to learn how to model something from an existing concept, from something that exists. It is way easier to learn when you are not doing the design at the same time as doing the model. Pick something that's iconic, pick something that you know, that you like, that you would be excited to make. You know, if you're going to do a vehicle, choose an iconic vehicle like the Batmobile or something like that, with ample and tons amount of references. Or go to a hobby store and buy a model kit of a tank or a car or a plane or something like that, and make that. That's great. That's a really great way to have reference, or have a good piece of reference to make something from. It's really, really a good way to learn. Can I show you my animations? No, I cannot. I don't have any of them. How old am I? Jacob CMI. Such a personal question, but I am 36. Mark Hans from YouTube says, how long does it take to create a complete character in case of client? Basically from concept to client. I assume you're going to be talking about concept art. If it's concept art, it's a couple days to do a design. Not too many. If you're talking about model creation, asset creation, something like where you're making a specific model for somebody, I'll show you my art station here and give you some examples of what I'm talking about. So this is my portfolio here. If you're talking about something like this, where you're making a high-end model for a film, this can take months of time. Multiple months of time to make a character like this. How do people in your field often retire? Do studios offer you retirement packages after X amount of years? No, not really. That's not necessarily a thing that's happens in the entertainment industry. If you're talking about a pension program or something like that, that is not something that really exists in entertainment in that way. Months. You didn't expect months. Again, this is what the character should look like and is a 3D file that can be handed off to visual effects or is being built in visual effects. Things like this probably take 6 to 8 weeks to make. Daniel asks about the compost bin. Oh yeah, I love talking about that topic. Do I name my files what they look like, i.e. creatures brain guy 01, because the files have no preview, it's kind of hard to know what you're looking at. I agree, it is hard to know what you're looking at. This is how I name my files. So you'll see Gremlin, Freeform, Dragon Details, Deep Sea King. This is just sort of a compost bin of things that I've sculpted on stream. And you'll see if they have ones after them, that means like this is the first iteration and this is the second iteration. So I'm kind of just opening that. This means it's the first, like the most recent one I started on, and this is the first iteration of that. So there's a bunch in here, and then these are all kind of full with other things very similar. So like I don't know what 11111 was. We can open it up though, and this appears to be a head sculpt of some kind. These are all Beta Ray Bills that I was sculpting. Creature. Oh yeah, I remember this one. You're here from the Twitter article about me. That's good. Hello, Zach. Welcome to the stream. We're looking through some of our old files right now. Some previous things we've sculpted on stream. Some spaceships. Let's put them all on screen. Some spaceships, some creatures. So I think I said this was a vampire. Felt sort of like that underworld vampire. Some other spaceships. What do we got over here? Another spaceship. More spaceships. We did these all last week. That's why there's a bunch of spaceships. And today we're working on this brain guy creature head. Yeah, better than final. Yeah, it is better, I guess. I mean, it's better in some ways. I don't know what many of these are. If it's this name I named, this was from when I did random character creation, random rolled character creation, and then tried to make up a character sculpt based on the person, on what it was. So this was a half-orc rogue named Maguzar. Question. What should you prefer, to work on 10 models and never finish them because it can be a never-ending process, or I should work on one project and finish it until I'm satisfied with the results? Well, I think finishing is a good um, habit to get into. Personally, I am not a great finisher, and you'll probably see that in my work, and it's probably frustrating for you as it is for me. Um, I would recommend trying to finish projects if possible. I think you'll learn a lot if you want to do the quantity over quality, which is kind of what you're talking about. You'll definitely learn a lot about going through the beginning of that process and what you're kind of actually going for and aiming for and all that stuff. But it's probably more valuable, especially if you're trying to get into the industry, to create finished pieces than it is to just do a bunch of random stuff that you can't show anybody. Jacob CMI, what's my opinion on photogrammetry and how it affects the amount of modeling jobs? Photogrammetry is amazing. It's obviously incredible. The key thing about photogrammetry is it can only take photos of things that exist. So think about all your favorite movies and things like that and how much of what doesn't exist in those worlds, and you'll still realize that there's quite a bit of jobs out there for modelers. So that's basically me quickly saying I think it frees up modelers to work on things that they probably would rather work on than a rock or a tree. All right. I don't know what we're going to do with this character any further. We can keep detailing them. Stream, would you like to see me continue detailing this character, or should we start another head? Another head, another creature, another character. Jacob is asking, so if I want to be a modeler, I would be safer doing characters rather than environments. I would say no. I think it's actually the opposite. Environments, just because I think you may have misinterpreted my answer. I'm not saying that environment artist jobs are going away because of photogrammetry. That's not true at all. I'm just saying that they get a focus on the things that are more specific and unique to the project. The scope of projects is also going to get larger and larger and larger and larger, meaning if a production designer and art director also realizes that they don't need to pay environment artists to sculpt rocks and trees and cliff faces and patches of rubble and all that stuff anymore, which is what they used to have to budget for and have to have somebody pay. Now they're going to assume that stuff can already be created quickly, and they're going to expand into bigger, larger environments, bigger, more fantastical set pieces that are going to need to be customly created. So I'm not saying that characters is easier or that environments is easier. Photogrammetry is not taking away any jobs. It's just making the jobs more fun and more exciting. Hello, none of it. Welcome. Good to see you, sir. Pacquiao, somebody says a new creature. I got one other. Let's get another couple votes in here. New creature or detail this thing out. New creature or detail. Question, what is better, to create a T-pose or A-pose character and later to rig for animation, or just sculpt a pose character and never use it in production? Good question. Hard to answer because it depends on if you're in production. If you're in production, obviously you're going to want an A-pose or a T-pose character so that it can be rigged and animated and used in a pipeline. If you're not going to use it in production, then there's not necessarily a reason to do that. I always find that it's a little easier to sculpt in something that has a subtle pose to it. So that's kind of what I would like. It's hard to answer that question because it really depends on what the goal of the project is. All right. Let's see. How do you sculpt horns? And somebody's asking about a new creature. How about we make a new creature with horns? That sound good? Let's switch this over to the side for a minute. We'll change it up. How do you sculpt horns? There's a couple ways you can sculpt horns. Underwater horns creature. Got it. Underwater horns creature. We're going to make this a Dynamesh object. Let's say 64. That'll be fine. I'm going to go to my move tool. Let's make sure my symmetry's on. All right, we're good. Underwater horned creatures. What kind of horns should we make? And what size should we make? You know, when you're doing small horns, like little tiny devil horns, you can just kind of stretch them out like this. If you're wanting like a ram horn or like a, you know, this is not going to be the right thing, but something that kind of goes like this. There's ways to do that with certain brushes. You can also insert meshes that will also automatically do that for you. Can I hear your thought process regarding anatomy while I sculpt? Yeah, we can talk about that too. All right, so horns and anatomy. It's a cue for a little bit of a drink of water, I think. Didn't mean to put the mic in my throat, so apologies if that happened. Getting things real weird in here. All right. Let's change up our music. Let's go to a synthwave. Do I know how to crack Mari? You are asking the wrong person right now, sir. Sorry about that. Icicles. Horns like icicles. You mean like a long horn kind of a thing? Just use a brush. I'm using the snake hook brush. Yes, but thicker. We'll just make your brush bigger. It sounds like you just want to add a cone. You can also insert a cone. Go in geometry, insert, cone. Move this down. And this could be a horn or something else. All right, we said an underwater creature with horns. Is that what we said? And thoughts on anatomy. All right. Thoughts on anatomy. I don't know what specific thoughts you're looking for, but I can just give you general high-level thoughts. Looking for a shape right now, though. I don't really know what I'm making yet. What is my approach to sculpting hair? Think of hair as big chunks. Meaning if you look at my hair here, which there's not a ton left, but you can basically see that there's one large kind of chunk that goes this way. Where's my hair? I'm in reverse. This way, and there's a little chunk back here, right? If you kind of look at anybody's hair, big photos of hair or something like that, that's kind of what you'll see is everybody's hair is going to be slightly, you know, there's big sections of it. Don't think about it as individual pieces of hair. That's not going to result in a good sculpt for you. How long would it take to become a good sculptor in ZBrush starting from beginner level? That's going to depend on your background. If you already know how to sculpt and you know how to draw, that'll usually translate pretty quickly. What are we making? I know it's underwater. I know it needs horns, but I'm just trying to I'm blanking on what I could just combine that into right now. Somebody said an underwater raptor? Maybe like a bug, underwater sea creature. Like a lobster. And you did want to talk about anatomy, and that's not really going to work as well though, so. Thoughts on anatomy though is think about the big shapes. The big shapes, think about the underlying structure, and that'll be really important to you. Having anatomy knowledge is fantastic when you're starting. You don't necessarily need to know all the muscles or even necessarily what they do. In fact, I think many of the anatomical books that I have are more along the anatomy for artists side. You know, about how you make a shape, what that shape is, what the cross section of a muscle looks like, and all that stuff, rather than, you know, the specific names and the insertion points and the, you know, the academic, you know, the Latin names for it. Those are nice to know. You can definitely flex your knowledge there, but it's not as important. We're making a shrimp. Make a quick shrimp. Ta-da! No, we're not going to make a shrimp. What are we going to make? Maybe this is the front of something. Or is this the front of something? Centipede. Treat it like a Lego piece. Oh, I got a lot of questions coming in. That's great. Scrolling up, sorry. Something with a bit of the gold luck for Pokemon. Question, do I need to create topology for every detail, or is it fine to fake the details with some textures and maps? Absolutely fine to fake the details with some textures and maps. That is totally fine. Don't let anybody tell you that it all has to be modeled in every single time. In fact, games as a medium, that's their number one trick, is, you know, normal maps, layered normal maps, all that kind of stuff. That's how they deceive you into thinking there's more detail in that model than there really is. Oh, sorry, you were talking about the hair like a Lego piece. I was like, I don't know what you're talking about, the Lego piece comics. Oh, question. I use a pen to answer that one really quick. Shrimp is so delicious. It is amazing. Hair is Lego pieces. I guess you could say that as Lego pieces, but that to me just means like one piece that goes on top. If I was to take a character and give a character hair really quickly, so we'll take this guy and we'll append a sphere. We'll give him the classic starting hair for a character, which is a afro. Across that sphere. Great. You can either just do it like this. This is when somebody says like a Lego chunk, this is what I imagine is just like bloop. And that doesn't necessarily get to what I mean. I'm going to shrink this actually instead of making a joke about it. And I'll put it inside the head. Or start with a piece at the front. So maybe I'll kind of make it come out where I think the hairline might be. I just grab the whole piece really quickly. Stretch it over. I don't know what kind of hairstyle we're going to do. What kind of hairstyle should we do here? Yeah, Gnomon Workshop is a fantastic site. That's actually the first place I heard about Gnomon was on the Gnomon Workshop. So first I'm going to kind of get all the shapes in. I'm getting the silhouette in. I'm just kind of trying to figure out what this shape is going to be. Now I'm going to break symmetry. What are my PC specs? I'm using a 2080 and I have 64 gigs of RAM. That's the basics. Breaking this up, I'm going to kind of do a little side part here. Turn this color off so you can see a little bit better with what I'm doing. Let's give it some color actually. Blue. Dark green. That'll be fine. All right, now I can start pulling this. And when I say chunks, what I'm saying is, like here's a big chunk right here, right? This is like this big front area as a chunk piece. And so now I can even start taking this big front. I can keep it masked or not, it doesn't really matter, but maybe I want to bring another section out, right? Now if it's a small piece like that, that's not necessarily a big deal. Right, but if I want to do like another big swoop, let's get some emo hair in here. I like just like the swoop in front of the face is just emo hair. But if we want to put this down like this, now there's two really large chunks to this that we want to play with. So just kind of paying attention to what the large pieces of hair are. You can break this down in the reference. I would always recommend with hair to not do what I'm doing right now and having a reference. The other thing about hair is it has a lot of volume, has a lot of form to it. So you're always going to be wanting to think about the size of and its silhouette and its shape. It's not just a little details or little decorations on top of a cap. That's just not really how it works. So there we go. So you can pretty quickly, easily add the hair, and you can go crazy with this, as far as whatever you want to do. I'm not going to spend too much more time on this, but I can come in here, get some of these lines in here, define some shapes. Here's a big chunk. Where also the direction and the flow of the hair, is it going downwards? Is it flowing backwards? Is it symmetrical? Is it not symmetrical? It's all important stuff. So hair's super fun, but breaking it up into chunks of, here's a big one here, here's a big one here, what direction is all this stuff all flowing? It's probably the most important thing to think about. We were making this thing. You were asking about horns. Honestly, horns you can just drag out with the snake hook brush. It's pretty easy to do that, so I wouldn't necessarily worry about that too much. Or you can insert something, a cone, you can insert something else. One lecture I gave at Gnomon on how I broke down the shapes of the Iron Man suit has always been valuable info for you. Just wanted to say thank you. No worries. Appreciate that, Matt. Thank you for the demo. No problem. What are your thoughts on Blender for sculpting? You know what? I haven't actually used Blender for sculpting, so I don't... I hear good things, but I've never used it. So I think for me, it's kind of, you know, if it's what you can afford and it's working for you, use that. I think that's great. For me, I like ZBrush. I like the feel of ZBrush. I like the level of pushing the boundaries of what ZBrush does every time they release a new product or a new patch. I feel like this is like a throne. I made a chair on accident. I was making a head and then it turned into a chair. So there we go. Let's see. Is Gnomon going to continue online classes for foreseeable future? You want to take a class or two without moving to LA? We are planning to open up classes full-time in person next quarter, so in October. I would reach out to our admissions team or a recruitment team. I believe Adam is here from recruitment, and he can help you figure that out, and they can give you more official guidance than I can. Pacquiao is asking a question from YouTube. How can I get a free internship to be part of a 3 to 5 month training program in the Gnomon office while I don't have a visa to visit America? We don't have internships at Gnomon, so unfortunately there's not a lot we can do to help you there. I'm sorry. What techniques do you use for hard surface sections like armor? That's a good question. If you're going to go super detailed, there's different techniques, like the live Boolean feature is really great, or using ZModeler is really great to build certain things. If I wanted to just turn parts of this into hard surface, I use the Smooth Stronger brush quite a bit. So for example, I'll just take this and I'll smooth this out. If this is just to show somebody that this is more of a refined surface, just using Smooth Stronger on an already existing forms. You kind of see that you don't need to really go too far if you're just trying to communicate that something can be a hard surface. Now, if you're wanting to go crazy detailed, you're going to want to use live Boolean. You want to use a lot of alphas, and you're going to want to use ZModeler and probably ZRemesher as well to create a more detailed mesh. Looks more effective than polish. It's an incredibly strong brush. You can use the polish brush, which is what I just switched to. The thing I don't like about the polish brush is that it takes a lot longer to get to the form that you're wanting, whereas the H-polish brush or the Smooth Stronger brush is just very strong in getting there. The benefit of the H-polish brush is you can go up to an edge like I am here, and I can spend some time brushing lightly, and even in the middle of this head you can see how much sharper that form gets. So it's really the combination of the two, of using Smooth Stronger to get to the initial plane, and then now I'm using H-polish, and you'll see that before and after as far as creating a more defined plane with what the Smooth Stronger made me to begin with. So it all depends on what your goal is, but I really like Smooth Stronger, H-polish, and then I also like, as far as sculpting brushes, I like Trim Dynamic, because that's one of the brushes you can just come in and create a very, very planar shape with, or shapes with. So, yeah, I like those quite a bit. As you can see, this is what we started with. we had started this. This kind of didn't go anywhere, did it? Got sidetracked, showed some demos. Still not entirely sure what this thing is. I thought it was a throne. Is it a head? Is it a body? It's got horns, we achieved that. Classes will be back in the fall. Does that mean ZBrush Summit will also be in person this year? I don't know. That's a good question. That's put on by Pixelogic. So you'd have to go ask them. We just host it. Ooh, it's like a little, for some reason it reminds me of like a tardigrade. Not at all the same shape, but there's something about this. This is like a plankton creature. This is his actual evolutionary life cycle. How do you do before and after? Is it a shortcut and which key? I'm just grabbing the timeline slider, and then if you hit undo, it usually does that. One big downside to H-Polish, in my opinion, says Kinshira from YouTube. When you dynamesh to lower resolutions, you get jagged and soft. When you up the resolution, again, they say jagged. Yes, that is true. Let's give it a little swirl. Does it stand? No, it swims. Do 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 do. Subtly, intentionally Loki designed helmet there, or horns. Loved the end of Loki. I don't know if we talked about that. Or was it? Did it end last week? My days are all messed up. Ooh, I like that. Ooh, I kind of like that. Reminds me of the plants in the underwater level of Ninja Turtles 1 on Nintendo. The original Nintendo Entertainment System. Does Loki use real-time like The Mandalorian? I don't believe it did. I think I saw an article over the weekend where they were saying that they didn't use that and it was for some reason. I don't recall what it is, though. Wow, you totally remember that. Thank you, Adam, for getting my obscure reference. It kind of looked like you were swimming through the middle of like a small intestine in that game. With all these little plants that had like these little fingers on them that would try to grab you. If there was a dream project that would pull you back into working in the industry, I think you have asked that before. I don't remember if I had an answer before. I never got to work on an official Star Wars project. That would maybe be something that would be interesting. I need to go higher. I do have a big love for Ninja Turtles. I have a love for D&D. Obviously, D&D movie's coming out. It's a ways away, though. Or they're filming now. Or they have been. Look, and somebody sits on the back. Ooh, that's what we just learned. That's the reveal of this character. It's like this underwater thing. Maybe this is a huge golem in this world. Maybe it's normal sized, I don't know. And on the back of this is just a straight up clam. It's like a shell. And it opens up and inside sits the Emperor. I don't know. Needs some work. We'll workshop that. We'll workshop that. This is a mount for the underwater peoples. Yeah, sure. It's a slow moving creature. Let's switch to our slightly bluer. There we go. It's more underwater. Let's switch to our green color. That's not green. We passed it. If any of you are nostalgic, this is what many of the original color schemes used to look like in ZBrush. I think I've double clicked over the one I wanted 6 times. Or it's just not here anymore. Oh, there it was. This is one of the original color schemes. In case you didn't know, this button up here lets you go through all these. I feel like this is one of the originals. Alright, this is the one I like. What camera are you using to stream with? And thanks for streaming. Nice to see your work live. I am using a Sony a7C for the actual camera itself. So that's what you see me up on this with. Hello. Allows me to do nice little close-ups and things like this, so you can see, you know, cool little pop figures I have or little things like that. And it's a great camera. It looks good. Really easy to set up with. Big fan of it though. If you were to go back into the industry, what would you like to see different, better process, deadlines, overtime? I never worked too much overtime, so I never really had an issue with any of that, to be honest with you. At least not extreme, crazy amounts of overtime. I never had that problem. I don't know. I only had it happen once or twice, but I would probably just say generally, sometimes people don't get credited when they should get credited on an actual movie or a show, and I'd like to see that. That's more of a general change, but that's not about me. It's just a general thing. Does it need to have a head like that? I don't think so. I'm not entirely sure I'm not entirely sure what details I'm doing right here. But we're getting in some wrinkles. What are you using to create and switch scenes when you are using 1.5? What am I doing? We're using Restream Studio. So it's basically the ability to kind of do something like this or something like this is all through Restream Studio. Oh, my exposure. There we go. See what happens if we hit this little inflate action. Sometimes you do a little inflate and then you smooth it a little bit. Maybe not smoothing it with the smooth stronger brush, but you can get some really interesting shapes. Like even that shape alone is kind of an interesting general shape to like build something off of. Probably better than what I have here. Sure. All right, let's figure out where this is coming from. Turning up the lazy mouse, that makes it so you can have much longer, more free-flowing strokes. I guess they could be streaks as well. Do you think NFTs can be used to give people more credit for work that is done on projects? No. Not the way that I see that. Or at least how they've been used. I'm not saying it's not possible, I guess, but it's just not how I see people wanting to use that technology. Would you want to work on a Robotech movie? Yeah, Robotech would be fun. I was never a huge Robotech fan, or even the Transformers cartoon fan. It just wasn't something I watched when I was younger. It's cool. I've watched a little bit of it and played with stuff, obviously, but Robotech was never really in my sphere. They've been teasing a Macross live action for decades. That's true. I keep hearing about that, but no action ever seems to come from it. What are your thoughts on sticking to one area like vehicle design, weapon design, creature design, character design, etc., instead of doing a bit of everything from environments to characters? I think it really depends on what you want to be known for and what you like to work on. If you like to work on a little bit of everything, do a little bit of everything. I know some people who do extremely well doing a little bit of everything. Often those people are more focused on the environment side to begin with, because then you're working with production designers and art directors to build sets, environments, keyframes, etc. Whereas people who focus on characters first tend to kind of get sucked into costume design or creature design or character design specifically, and you usually don't get asked to do environments. So it's definitely possible to do all of the above if that's what your area of interest is, but it never hurts to be a specialist in one of those. Just look at the art from your students. Really amazing what they created, especially some characters they made. Agreed, our students are incredible. I think I'm super, super happy and proud of the work that our students have been doing. We make that student reel every year, and it always gets better and better and better and better. And that's a testament to them. The students are the ones that put in all the hard work. Obviously, our education staff as well for guiding and mentoring them through, but props to the students for putting in all that hard work and those countless hours to make their stuff look amazing. This has really morphed into something very different than what it was turning into. I kind of like this one more than this. Yeah, I think I like the one on the left more. Do you have classes? You remember I made a tutorial on how to sculpt Venom. That was the last time you saw my work. Do I still teach? I do still teach. I actually teach for Gnomon. I teach an introductory class called Overview of Digital Production. But yeah, there's a lot more of my work on my portfolio, so you can feel free to check that out. You're probably talking about this piece, which is off camera over here, but is probably more like this. A lot of stuff I've done since then, though. All right, I like the one on the left more. All right, we'll stick with that for now. Oh, this hand is very different than this hand. Why? What happened? Oh, they were different to begin with. Huh? The industry needs me. Oh, thank you. resymmetrical. Resymmetrize. That's not a word. Just thinking about it. It did not like that. Since there's no subdivision levels here, is there subdivision levels here? No. Geometry, modify, mirror and weld. That would do just fine. Looks like the whole thing was off. Weird. But now we're equal. Now we're equal. Did you ever put any Easter eggs in your production work? I saw text artists put tiny initials in the Iron Man suit for Adventures. I think I did at some point. I didn't do anything crazy, and it was probably incredibly small. Kind of like what you're talking about. But I can't recall like a specific moment. It's easier when you do concept art because if you can throw stuff in concept art and that stuff doesn't usually get translated to the final. As far as like hiding Easter eggs. Alright, I'm starting to hit a little block on this one. We could keep pushing it. It reminds me a lot of, I did another one I was telling you guys, this is my bunch of sculpts we've done. I think it was called like Deep Sea King. Deep Sea King. This is the Deep Sea King. Oh, this isn't the one. It was a royal. I think I called it royal. Ah, yes. This one. This feels like the king. Or like a guard at the minimum. And this feels like a little court jester that would live in this world. Getting ready for class. See you. Have a good stream. Have a good class. I'll be here on the stream. Where do you get that material you are using? I got it from ZBrush Central. I just look for Z, the letter Z, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. I like this one more though. This type of sketch is fun, but it's also very confusing because it's kind of hard to know exactly what everything is. So you at a certain point you got to kind of figure out like what is all these shapes that you've made. Anyways. This one needs some adjustments to its face. How much time do you spend in ZBrush per day usually? That depends. Working at Gnomon less. When working as an art director or creative director less. As an individual artist or freelancer or something like that, you know, I would spend 6 to 8 hours a day. I don't like that. I don't like that. Still like this one more. We don't need the eyeballs. Clone. It's the real secret of 3D. You can use anything for anything. I mean, this doesn't really work, but we'll make it work. Have you ever dealt with RSI problems? If so, how do you handle it? And has it impacted your career in any way? I'm currently suffering from 2 tennis elbows, and which hinders me from practicing. I had a back injury, but that was not specifically related to chairs. I've had a bad back for a long time, and so I move around a lot when I work. I move around a lot when I work. I change position. I sit forward. I sit back. I do all that kind of stuff because I found that if I just merge into my chair, that's probably the worst thing for me. I will also switch pretty often between a pen, which is what I'm using right now, and a mouse. So sometimes, especially even when I'm sculpting, like right now, for example, I'll switch to a mouse. Using the move tool, for example, like I can still sculpt and do certain parts of the job, especially if I was in Maya or Photoshop or something. Switching to a mouse and at least changing the direction of my hand. And whenever I'm sculpting with a pen, it's more from my elbow or from my arm to do larger motions. So I'm going to do shapes like this, meaning you can see my whole arm move, whereas it's just my wrist moving here. So I've found that it's kind of the moving around from pen to mouse helps me. If I only, from my personal experience, if I only am using a mouse all day long, I will have wrist or some sort of a problem. But if I'm also only using a pen all day long, I'll also have problems. I, for a while, tried a standing desk. The standing desk I thought was fantastic, except if I stood for too long, that also caused me some problems. So it was about, for me, I've learned, at least for my body and my workflow and how I like to do things, it's been about switching. So switching from one position to another position to another position, or tool to another tool, and that helps me quite a bit so that I'm not constantly doing the same thing every day, because that's what RSI is, right? Like you wrote. It's repetitive strain. So even for me right now, I'm working on my left monitor. So sometimes I'll switch over to my right monitor, which is a slightly taller monitor for my neck. Sometimes I'll sit higher, sometimes I'll sit lower. But in generally also invest in your ergonomic equipment as far as chairs. Some people think it's ridiculous to pay an expensive, a heavy cost for an expensive chair. If you live in a big city, you can search for companies, office companies. They'll often have chairs that they're selling, like Aeron chairs, high-end Herman Miller chairs, for pretty cheap, especially in comparison to what they would have cost. So you can do that. But a chair to me is much like a bed. It's something that, especially if you're going to be using it 6 to 8 hours every day, invest in it. So I invested in my chair. This one specifically I've had for over a decade. It's a steel case, and I really, really like it, and it's still holding up quite well for me. So I highly, highly recommend just kind of investing in the things that are going to keep you healthy, and hopefully through that keep you happy. Yeah, they're important to me. I don't go as crazy as like, this is my routine. I know some people who have their routines and they need to be set up in very specific ways, or whatever their thing is, and I respect that. I've seen it work for a lot of people. Working out is also a great thing to keep you healthy, to keep you moving. Whenever I'm not working out, which has been for quite a while, I just started again recently. I also noticed that my body physically fights me. I'll get injured more, have back pain more, hip pain, all that kind of fun stuff happens more if I am not being physically active. What's the wildest routine you've heard about? Oof. I don't know, and even if I can think of it, I don't think I'd want to out anybody specifically, but I don't know. I can't think of a specific one, but I know of some people who's just, they have a very strict regiment to what they like to do. Sounds like you're saying Conceptual Visions from YouTube is saying, huge change for me was starting using the Wim Hof breathing method. I don't know what that is, but I'll take a look at it. That releases all the stress built up in the body. I've definitely done a lot of meditation and breathing techniques in that way. Kind of the whole mindfulness thing I've found to be helpful. Every morning my wife and I and our son, we get out, usually go get some coffee, and then we also go for a walk every morning. And that certainly helps just get you moving and start preparing your brain and your body to be moving and to not, roll out of bed. The times for me when it was the worst, when my body or whatever was, if there was any breaking down issues, it was when I was going to bed at 2, 3, 4, 5 a.m. working on projects or playing games, waking up at 9, 10, going to work, rolling out of bed, especially if I was at school, rolling out of bed and working straight on my computer or going straight to a computer, by 10 o'clock and being in a computer chair till 2 or 3, going to grab lunch, coming back, eating it, working for another several hours, eating at 8 p.m., sitting back in the chair. It's all that kind of stuff that for me is the thing that causes the problems. And all of a sudden now you're working till 3 a.m. again, and you don't really do anything. You don't really do anything outside of getting in your chair. Hi, hello, welcome to the stream. What? Wim Hof is the Iceman. Okay. Oh, the person that goes into the water. Yeah, that's interesting. His methods really do work wonders. That's really interesting. I don't necessarily know. I think I've seen a documentary about him, but I didn't know he had his own breathing technique. Which is kind of cool. This character is kind of coming along, but not in some ways. I don't really know where we're going with this, but I think we're starting to get there. shader. Just go a little. Paddle hands. It's not quite what I wanted. We'll work with this for now, though. This is probably one of the things I learned the most from practical traditional sculpting is the importance of silhouette and how to use silhouette when you're sculpting. Don't like this shape. kind of trying to figure out a way to do these feet. Really just trying to make it so they're not distracting, and I feel like I keep making them more distracting. Alright, don't touch them after this. Sure. Except for like maybe reposing them. All right. Any questions from the chat? Please feel free to ask. We're just kind of dialing in this character here, which kind of started out as like a weird starfish. Pardon the random head that's going to be in here the whole time, but how about we just hide it? Kind of a weird starfish creature. It ended up growing some legs and arms. And then eventually, I think I popped this head in here that we had sculpted at the beginning of the stream. And that kind of turned a bit of a focus onto the character. And now we're here. Sort of like a fawn, like a alternate take on a Guillermo del Toro Pan's Labyrinth fawn. Is what this is really turning into. Or has, when you're thinking of it at least. I haven't seen that movie in a long time. I'd like to. This drum machine is going nuts though. I'll often do this in case you haven't already seen me do this before. Basically go back and forth and decide if I like this one more or if I like this one more or something in between. Alright, kind of faltering on this sculpt for a little bit. I'm starting to lose sight of where I want to go with it. So let's try some other parts of the body we haven't really focused on. All right. I like some of this. It's just definitely not my favorite. What gender am I thinking about while designing this? I'm not. I'm not really thinking about that at all, actually. I think what I would need to move forward is to probably, and this usually happens whenever I do a sculpt like this that's built into like one piece, meaning like this is all one sculpt, but I'm dictating a lot of different potential types of materials, costumes, bones, fabrics, you know, sinew, membrane tissue, like all different kinds of things in here. I would need to spend some time separating them, because when you see stuff like this, it's really, really loose, or this, which is really, really loose, especially like right in here. It doesn't really communicate what the material is. And when I say material, I don't mean the texture, I don't mean the color, I mean like the surface quality of that material. Is it a translucent, thin, fleshy material? Is it a rigid, thick, fabricy, leathery material? Is it a bone? Is it a, you know, loose skin? Like, what is this? And that's probably what I would need to really push this a little bit, is to kind of take it and probably also combine some of the wrinkly stuff that I have here, you know, maybe adding a subdivision level and then seeing if we could get some of that coming through here as well. Same with this bone, or this horn, or whatever it is. What is this? What is it made of? Is it an antenna? Is it a bone? Is it something like keratin? Is it a stone? It's really soft and flimsy up here. Does it transition into another material, or is it all the same material? And that's kind of for me where a lot of my time would eventually go. So deciding on questions like that. Probably taking away some of this. Feels like it's not very well balanced on this side. But this really sharp thing that's shooting forward. I'm not saying it needs to have a bunch of balances in this way, but it needs something. Do I remember some of the interview questions you got asked while job searching? Yeah, I remember many of the interviews that I had. There's not a specific thing that really sticks out to me. The one I think that stuck out to me the most, for some reason, is when I was interviewing at Naughty Dog, and they were asking me if I knew what a draw call was, which I did not know what a draw call was. I had never worked in games before, and so I told them I didn't know, and that worked out pretty well. So, a little mini piece of advice is don't lie. Don't be like, oh yeah, I totally know what that is. If you have no idea what something is, you will get caught in a lie very quickly, and it always looks really bad to lie. Especially more so than just saying you don't know, but asking, what is that? How long will you troubleshoot a problem before asking for help? Until I feel like I'm not going to be able to overcome it, and I just really need the help. I try not to ask for help too quickly or too immediately, because I know that I can probably find the answer. If I'm really struggling to find the answer, I'll look. But I don't think you should be. I think you should be very self-sufficient in being able to find problems or answer problems or solutions or things, getting over obstacles you encounter. And nobody wants to be the person who immediately asks for help every single time they encounter a problem. That just gets annoying. Didn't really end up changing all that much, did I? Not in that last change.
One, two, 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 three, funk.
That feels more like a minotaur in a weird way. Let me get into this. Let's see, what else can we keep doing? Skinny Minotaur. Just kind of picking away at this thing. We're making some progress. We have about 40 minutes left in the stream, so if anybody has any questions, please feel free to ask them. I'm happy to answer it best I can. Otherwise, we're just going to keep picking away at this, finalizing, not really finalizing, but just kind of finessing some bits of this design that could use a little work.
One, two, three, funk.
Kind of like these, feeling like they're kind of kelp, kind of cutouts. So I'm not going to change that too much. Might just kind of sculpt in here a little bit and clean it up. I'm still using that smooth, stronger brush. So even though this is a 600,000 poly object, even all these little artifacts from the clay buildup brush get smoothed out pretty quickly and easily, which is nice. This area probably needs to be rezzed up a little bit. This is too circular. Some lines that are going to go through this. This is where H-polish, we were talking about these brushes before. H-polish can be really great in this though. Focus that we're putting in here. I'm going to go ahead and add that level of detail. So we're at just over 2.5 million now. Captured your likeness perfectly. Well, thank you for sending me so many reference photos. Adding a second or another subdivision level here to this face. Some details here. I'm not gonna lie, everybody, it's really, really hot in my garage right now. If we enhance to the full cam, you would see little beads of sweat forming. This is becoming more than just an art jam. This is an exercise. For some reason, horns like this always remind me of Illidan. Demon Hunter. I was thinking the other day that the Warden in Warcraft 3 Frozen Throne is a very underused character. I don't know if they really used her all that much. I mean, you had like the single player portion of the campaign that I remember you play as, and obviously you could pick her in multiplayer, but speaking of Illidan, she reminded me of a Warden. I thought she was a super cool character design. She turned into good Dota, and one more Dota. Just Dota? Yeah, the Dota character, the Spectral Assassin, I think is what it was. Phantom Assassin. Yeah, his horns curve, like I don't think they're as tall. I think they're kind of more like this kind of a thing, sorta. Which is also cool. Let's keep that. All right. I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm just kind of messing up this face. We have more of the humanoid face. It's kind of more aggressive face, and then I was just kind of making shapes to it. I like how the head is tilted up. I do think I overall actually like the direction it's going now. There's an appeal to this one. You know, to this sort of monstery one, but I do kind of like what I was doing here with this sort of construct aberration kind of a thing. Chat, do y'all have an opinion? Do you like this one more? Right? Or left more? Right or left? I could probably still tilt that head up though, even if I liked this one more. I do kind of like it. Jacob says left. I hear you, Jacob. Don't do it. It almost froze on me. I felt it. Let's go back to where we were. It's trying to crash on me, everybody. Let's pray that it gets back there. And we'll save that. So where we were earlier, as we kind of spent a little bit of time working this way, our way up on this thing, and then we are now here. Let's switch over to this material, just a slightly different look at it. And then we'll experiment with some color blocking. So we got about 20 minutes left. So for the rest of that, what I'm going to do is just experiment with some colors. So I'm first going to just fill it both with white. You can just hit the little white or the paint brushes to the left of the eyeballs in your subtool palette. That'll automatically fill it with white. And that way, if you start painting, I'm going to turn off Z add up here in the top, and I'm going to turn on RGB, and now I can start painting whatever colors I feel like. Whatever that is, I kind of like the idea of that all being a consistent theme. Obviously, we could go classic red in a lot of this. Going to quickly do a mask to fill everything else except for this kind of darker greener area here. So I'm going to go to masking once I find it. I feel like I'm blind. Masking. Mask by color is probably fine. If I do mask by intensity, you'll see that that basically masks that. I can turn that off to color. We'll hide the mask, invert the mask. And now I can fill everything with this color. So I have this in between of those two things. The mask is now gone. So we're going gold today. Turning down the RGB intensity. This allows you to bring areas of warmth to potential areas. I'm not sure if I even want this red in here, but you'll kind of see it can add warm tones to certain parts of the character pretty easily. Later I'll probably pepper this in, or I'll pepper some other color in. I don't know if it'll be red yet, but I'll end up painting back over it. Already got a lot of green. but that's kind of a nicer green. These two colors are playing super well together. Hello everybody, if you're just joining the stream or if you've been hanging out for a little while. We have 15 minutes left in the stream as we're kind of wrapping up this creature today. Experimenting with some colors, some little blocking of what the color breakup could look like. Liking some of it, but not all of it, so we're going to kind of keep playing around with it a little bit, but... What the hell is this? That's a great question. I don't even know. Have you ever encountered a creature like this before? I have no idea. Honestly, we're just kind of making stuff today, and we made a sort of a Minotaur demon sphinx. Is what I've kind of settled on the potential description for this thing. Can you do a creature with 4 dimensions? It's a little hard. I believe the 4th dimension is time. So if you go back and watch our YouTube channel and watch it from the beginning, you can watch it in 4 dimensions. Ding! What stage do you decide to subdiv your model? I tend to work a lot with Sculptris Pro even later during reproduction, and then I reproject. I'm sure I'm doing something wrong. No, not necessarily. That's not necessarily wrong at all. I find Sculptris Pro to be really great to add levels of detail exactly where you need it, and then reproject. Or I love Sculptris Pro. It just depends on what you're using it for. I like to work up a little slower. That's just the methodology that works best for me. So I'll sculpt in Dynamesh at a lower, subdivision 32, 64, 128, 256 typically. And then at some point I'll hit a point where it's like, it'd be nicer to have, whether I hit a cap on my subdivisions after I start, adding them there, or for some reason I just feel like, oh, the geometry here is really warped or it's going in some direction. Then I'll whip out, Z-Remesher or Sculptris Pro to fix a problem or something like that. But most of the time, I'm just going to do it straight up and eventually add Z-Remesh into the mix. It's not a requirement though, especially if like your needs for it are for illustration or 3D printing or just for high-res models, visual development, something that's going to be handed off to somebody else who will be your production partner. You don't need to do every piece of it if you don't have to for part of your job. Good question, though. Thank you for asking. Do we have Discord? Do I have Discord? I have Discord, yes. We do not have an official Gnomon Discord channel, if that's what you're asking. No problem. Hopefully it's helpful. The best thing about like ZBrush and 3D and all that fun stuff is there's not really a right answer. You can certainly do things wrong. You can mess up, but there's so many different ways to accomplish a goal that you can kind of do it in whatever way feels best for you. I'm just resisting making so many bad puns. I don't know if there's like an internal stopper for anybody else to just not let them all come out at once. Or quotes. Trying to make your workflow a bit more fluid, so you tend to do more high-resolution details with a lot of fine details. Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, that's where Sculptris Pro comes in great. This is the Dota methodology, which is basically put a giant gradient on the whole character. A lot of MMOs and MOBAs did this, still do this. Basically creating a gradient light map from the very top of the character to the bottom. That makes it so that it looks like they are more integrated into the scene. And it allows you, especially if you're working on a top-down character like this, to look at the top of the character because it's in full light, as opposed to something like, this, where you'd be looking at the bottom of the character. too. Did you hear about Amazon's new MMO breaking 3090s? I did not. New World, I did not hear that it was breaking 3090s. That's a problem. I assume it's New World. Man, that just doesn't sound good. That started looking good quickly. Thank you. I appreciate that. It came together, or at least it's got potential to come together. I think there's some fun areas in here that could use a lot of attention, but that need some real focus as far as what the materials are, which is what I was saying before. And I think there's some cool elements in this one. I'm happy I was able to use that head that I sculpted at the beginning of the stream. There's still a little pouch back here for somebody to sit. Make a little chair for them. What is your ultimate super advice to newcomers to ZBrush? If you are somebody who already knows 3D, forget everything you ever knew about 3D because it's not going to help you here. That's the first thing I would say. The second thing is accept that the interface is weird, but it will be totally worth it if you work with a pen because it's all going to be at your fingertips. And third, I would probably say don't rush into details. Don't rush into details and try to focus on primary form, secondary form, and then tertiary form in that order. And that will help you quite a bit with getting models or creating models that are going to have more appealing shapes to begin with. That's probably the three things I tell people. How did you start first using ZBrush? I started first using ZBrush actually off of a Gnomon workshop tutorial several years ago. And that helped me figure out actually that what I wanted to do for a career was work in entertainment and be in the modeling teams. Have lots of patience. Ooh, that's a good one. Have lots of patience is true. Be kind. I mean, there's general, not specific for ZBrush, but be kind, be nice. It's a small industry. Everybody says that, but it's quite true. Those three forms you mentioned, any books to help us learn about those? I have no idea what secondary form is and you want to learn more. It's all theoretical, primary form, secondary form, tertiary form. I would look up Philippe Farreau's sculpting books. Oh, they're underneath a lot of stuff right now. I'll find a web page and I'll bring it over to you. Hang on. If I take a bunch of toys, I'll make sure I'm spelling this name right. Mastering Sculpture, I think it is. This is the one that I like. Figure Sculpting by Philippe Farreau. You can also take a look at Philippe Farreau. He has a bunch of different things that books that he has, but if you actually go to his website, you will see that he has an online store with some tools, stands, books, etc. And in here, there's things like sculptures of the face, the geometric forms. This is stuff that I would recommend specifically. And I keep scrolling down, see if I can find some of the plaster casts that he has. Reference casts. Head casts. This is a really good one. And generally having a solid understanding of the planes of the face, or just a general understanding of planes, I think would be very helpful to a beginner who wants to get into sculpting or wants to get into digital sculpting or just understanding sculpture as a medium, as an art form. Planes and what that means, Planes, like an airplane. That's a huge element of sculpting because it just is so much about how form is made, not necessarily what it looks like on the surface, but what is the fundamental underlying structure. That's probably one of the biggest things. So form, 1, 2, and 3 shapes. Think of it like you're building up a big shape, and then your smaller shape that sits on top of that, and your even smaller shape that sits on top of that is your primary, secondary, and tertiary forms. And then books like, or casts like this, there's a ton of these. You can see like this one, for example, is half normal, like half correct, like what it should look like, and then this half on this side over here is broken down into planes, so you can see how much more chiseled it is. When you're wanting to begin sculpting, you kind of want to search for shapes like this, because these shapes are easy to turn into realistic looking shapes, whereas it's what's underneath it that's important. So take a look at that. Philippe Farreau is great. His books, the ones that I would recommend, again, I have these 3 here. They're all really, really good. But figure sculpting is great, and portrait sculpting is great, because inside of this book, you'll see him talking about, it is a clay sculpting book, so it can work for anybody who's into sculpting. But you'll get to see a little bit about how he makes everything from sculpting reference to sculpting skulls and stuff like that. Anatomy is a really great place to start for this stuff. So if you're interested in sculpting, looking up anatomy reference, doing an écrochet is a good, not necessarily a starting point, but a sort of a couple steps in as far as learning the anatomy, learning what the bones are, what muscles attach to them, and that can really help you quite a bit. So I would super highly recommend Philippe Farreau for that kind of stuff. So yeah, Philippe Farreau. And with that, it is 5 o'clock. I didn't even notice. All right, everybody. Here's our creature that we ended up making today. Our Minotaur Sphinx, I guess, is what I'm naming them. Minotaur Sphinx for our stream. Thank you, everybody who's come and hang out and said hi and asked questions. I really, really appreciate it. We will be streaming again next week from 2 to 5 Pacific time. With Art Jam. So we do this every week, 2 to 5 Pacific time, on our YouTube, Twitch, or Facebook page. So please come in, say hi, and ask questions, or hang out, or work on your own stuff, whatever works for you. We'll also be having a couple more streams coming up, so please stay tuned to our social media channels. Instagram is probably one of the best ones to follow us on, so that you can see when we have new streams, whether it's events or makings of or interviews with artists. We have a bunch of cool stuff for you. So, all right, y'all. Well, thank you so much. Really, really appreciate you all hanging with me. and I will see you next week.